All right. Can you guys hear me okay? I see a couple of you guys on here. There's about 40 of us that are going to be here today, and I'm really excited to jump in. I'm going to do my best to answer any questions that you guys might have, and go over just some basics that a lot of people tend to ask kind of the same things over and over. So I thought it would be cool to do something live as a group and have a little more interaction, and to just get to know you guys and make sure I'm answering the questions that you really want me to answer instead of just throwing out data, here and there. My name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton-Sehon. I am a naturopathic doctor. I have been working with plants in general since 2008, and just found Iboga in September last year. So I'm new to the Iboga game. I say newer. I've been, 6 months since I did my flood dose, but 9 months exactly since I found out about it and started studying and researching it. So what I found is there's a lot more to this than just the whole military vets getting it for TBI, which is really helpful, and or using it for opiates. And so I wanted to dive in and talk a little bit about some of the other health benefits that maybe aren't as big of a focus, in my opinion, and or ever talked about in general. So after I did my blood dose, I actually looked for books and literature and anything that I could get my hands on to study this more, because I was just like bit by the bug of wanting to know more. And I found a couple books out there, but I did not find anything regarding like a lot of the health part of it. So I got a lot of people's stories and like, what they saw when they did it, which is beautiful. But I am kind of a nuts and bolts data person. And so I really wanted to know more about the health. And when I didn't see that, I was like, so I started making PDFs and writing things myself down. And about 3 days into microdosing, my brain just came online in a whole new way. And I just started writing. And in 3 days, I had 2 books completely finished. One of them is the book Grandfather Iboga, which finally published today. For those of you who ordered, we will get our printed copies on around the 15th of this month. And then I will be signing those babies and sending them off to you. And if you did not order it from me from my website, you still have a chance to order it either on the website to get a signed copy, or you can order it from Amazon. It's live now. If I told you everything that happened to finally get my book back, you wouldn't even believe the stories, but it's fine. Thank God for Iboga, or honestly, I would have lost my mind just with that process. But so today when we're talking, I am not going to give medical advice. I'm not going to talk about dosing. I'm not going to talk about how much microdosing. I'm not going to go into any specifics on any of that, because everyone's different. I'm not a facilitator. I don't have the ins and outs on how it looks from that end. I only know how it looks from my end as far as being a patient, and also how it looks on and is, did I just blank out? And how it looks on some of the data and the research, and what I've spent like now months really looking into the data part. And if you do have any questions, I think you guys can write questions in here. But like I said, I'm just not going to answer medical stuff. So if something comes to mind that you have a question, I don't mind you guys putting it in there, and I'm happy to do this. We're going to go maybe 45 minutes. I don't want to like make everybody wait forever on this. But so yeah, also what I have found myself doing from doing 800 interviews now just for the book, and probably have about maybe 2,000 calls that I've done since the book, in addition to the 800 interviews. Unfortunately, what I did find out is there are a lot of places that are just popping up really, just probably 10 are popping up right now as we speak, because there are people who are just really excited about this, number one, and really want to help. The downside of it is there are other people who are looking into this like a gold rush and a money thing and a greed thing, and they really don't know what they're doing. They're just seeing it as a business, and unfortunately, about 40% of the calls that I get are people who have went somewhere and had a very, very, very difficult time at these places, not only because of the facilitator that they worked with, but also because of the facilities. So the facilities may be not what they've been promised, or maybe there's no AC or no locks on the doors. There's kind of sketchy people there. There's just, and people have been hurt. It's not been fun. I'm actually a part of a deposition for a lawsuit with one of them right now who went and had a very terrible time. And I've been doing integration with her, and it's awful. It's heartbreaking. The other unfortunate thing that I'm seeing is some of these places may have started out very, very well. And I don't know if money is a situation or they're just overloaded. But I'm seeing that not only is it really difficult to get in, like last I've heard, some of these places are like September 2027. A lot of these places won't call back because they are so overloaded. Or a big thing that's kind of scary to me is I kind of feel like maybe there's some cutting corners on some things, just because I have had several cases where people call me, 2 yesterday, just this week, who went and they feel like they were underdosed. The girl that I talked to like an hour ago also said the same thing. That's kind of sad because, you go, you put, time that you block off to go get some healing, and either the facilitators aren't good, the facility isn't good, and or the medicine could be sourced from a wrong place that causes that underdose thing. And either it could be the facilitators not really knowing what they're doing and giving like a bad dose, like over or under, or it could be that they're using Ibogaine, which is a pharmaceutical, and the pharmaceutical can be extracted either from Iboga, which is the grandfather tree, known as something that's very, very old, that has a lot of alkaloids, that goes really, really deep in the body, versus something that can be extracted from what they call a Voaconga plant, which they can be a lot younger. They're more readily available. They're cheaper to get as far as resourcing it. Because these Iboga trees, it's called grandfather because they're old. And that's one reason. Also because of the opportunity for neuroplasticity is just the biggest in all psychedelics, and it's the longest psychedelic that you can go on. It's the Mount Everest, they say, or the peak, the top thing that you could do as far as psychedelics. But so yeah, it's interesting that if they get it from this one plant, the alkaloids are not the same. They're not as powerful. So if they extract it from the plant and they use that medicine for someone, they could feel like nothing happened. They could be wanting to drink alcohol like instantly, or they maybe only have like a session that's 30 minutes when it should be like 24 hours. And they're just sitting up and nothing's happening, and they don't feel like their trauma has been helped, and they don't fear and their grief or whatever the situation is that they went for is still the same. People are drinking on the way home. They're coming home. They're like, this girl who I talked to today, she said, it was fine. It just didn't work. And I was like, what do you mean it didn't work? And then she goes to tell me. So, anyway, so that's the situation with that. You got to know the source of where you're getting your Ibogaine. And I personally don't like Ibogaine at all. I love um, I love Iboga better. I prefer Iboga. I like the natural way. I'm a naturopath. Of course, I'm going to want to do something more natural than do something on the pharmaceutical side. So I am working with a couple places that are very, very different from each other. And so there are some qualifications to get in most of these places. So I am doing 20-minute, like, quick calls with people to kind of see if you're a good candidate, to see if you can even get in some of these places, and then try to help kind of bridge the gap getting you in, because some places, like I said, they're so overwhelmed, they're not answering the phone, but they'll pick up the phone for me. And I have built some pretty good relationships with some people that I'm able to do that. And so I've been able to help get some people in. There are some openings in July the 26th, August the 10th, and September the 13th right now in 2 different places. So if that's someone is you and you're interested in going, then we can set up a private 20-minute call and we can see about how to get you in for that. So that's part of it. Now, again, these places that I'm referring to, they do not do detoxing. So that is something that you would have to do on the front end. And what I mean by detoxing, I mean medications, I mean alcohol, opiates, fentanyl, kratom, this kratom stuff, not kratom, kratom, especially the 7-OH is extremely hard to get people off. It's the receptors really love it. They hang on for life. Benzos are not a good idea either. So the people that I do take in, they're going to have to get off of all that stuff to be able to even go to these places. So that's one thing to think about. But yeah, those are the main things that I wanted to share, is that, if you're on an SSRI, if you're on a benzo, if you're taking any of those medications, then you can't participate. These are for more places, I guess, that would be like depression, TBI, autoimmune, what else? Any kind of inflammation, fibromyalgia, Lyme, chronic fatigue, any kind of PTSD or CPTSD. Those things definitely would be someone that you guys would be eligible for, or the person would be eligible for, to get in. Any things like that are not, I don't want to say easy for the person and or the facilitator, because it's still pretty crazy. But yeah, that would be the clinics. Or a spiritual reason, if you're just trying to go deeper and trying to figure out, like, more about yourself, more about your future, more about the path that you need to go on, try to make sense of some things that you've gone through. That would be a good type of thing. So, all right. Any questions? I don't undergo difference between Iboga. Yeah. So someone's asking about the difference between Ibogaine and Iboga. Like I said, the Iboga is a plant. It's just a regular plant. And the Ibogaine is an extract from Iboga that they have semi-synthesized to, it's, kind of lab created. It is a white powder, and it is a little harder on the body. Your time span on the actual trip session is a lot shorter, and you can get Ibogaine from Iboga or Voconga. So you just don't know where. And I don't know if they're going to tell you where they got it from, to be honest. So that's one thing. Ibogaine, if you hear any negative things about Ibogaine, which there are sometimes that have had some hiccups with Ibogaine, it's because it is a little bit harsher, and you definitely need people around if you're going to do that. People are like, oh, let me just do this by myself at home. No, you're not doing anything at home. You need to be in a facility to get help. Yeah, so that's the main thing. Someone's asking about the pros and cons on, I think I just said that. I don't know. Can you explain why I prefer Iboga? Iboga it has 40 alkaloids in it. Um, all of those alkaloids do very, very, very different things that are very beneficial for everybody. They're also antifungal, antiviral, antibacterial, antiparasitic. Um, they'll help with loads of things. Versus ibogaine. Ibogaine is one of the alkaloids in those 40. So if you do Iboga, you get ibogaine automatically. If you extract ibogaine, I mean, out of that alkaloid out and make it a solitary molecule, and then you synthesize it, then that becomes a pharmaceutical. And like I said, it's a little harsher, and also it's a little more like there have been more trouble with that as far as cardiac issues or other things. And so that is something to think about, especially if you do have any kind of heart issues or whatever. That's another thing that they will medical screen you for, is to make sure you don't have any heart issues, no schizophrenia in your background, no bipolar. Those are two mental issues that it's a no bueno for Iboga, because it can really, really cause more harm than good. But with Iboga, you're getting all 40 of the alkaloids that do lots of different things. They work really, really good together. And one of those things, like I said, is ibogaine. So you get ibogaine, but you also get all these other things. So I guess it's more like if you're trying to win a baseball team, a game, do you want to just have a pitcher on your team, or do you want like the whole team? For me, I want to have as many people on my side as possible, and to have as many things working for me really, really deeply as possible. With Iboga, it tends to be a lot longer of a session as well. I got a lot more out of it than just like a 6-hour or a 12-hour. I'm sorry, it's usually about 6 to 8 hours with Ibogaine. So that's another thing. One more thing to say about the differences is Ibogaine tends to leave you a bit on a down. And so those who go to the clinics where the Ibogaine is, there's a bit of a down on the end after you're finished. And what I hear a lot of people do is they do the 5-MeO at the end to kind of bring everybody back on the up, because they do have to get people out the door. They're not having people stay for weeks, and most people can't afford to stay there for that long, and they got to get new people in and it's all. I don't want to say it's like a drive-by, but a lot of these places are like you're in and you're out, you're in and you're out, and they just need you to be on a high to get on the plane. Not a high like you're going to be high, but not a low either. With Iboga, you will have a gray day, just like Ibogaine, but usually after your gray day on day 2 or day 3, you're out hiking, you're out, at the beach, or you're in nature, you're up, you're eating, you're good. You don't have that low that Ibogaine does as the pharmaceutical. So yeah, let's see what else. What do they extract then? Why do they extract it? That's a good question. They're making a pharmaceutical. A lot of the farm companies are backing all the different testing that they have out right now. And since Trump decided to do this executive order, which I'm really glad it's getting attention. If you notice, or if you've been watching the news, that happened April 18th. And all of the people, I think they kind of feel left behind as far as the pharmaceutical companies. And they're just like, wait a minute, there's money in this. We could do this. And so they're backing all these tests. I don't know what's going to happen with this. There could be it could be really good, and maybe people do, maybe they do reschedule it, and maybe we do get some wins here. I have a feeling they're going to really, really control it, and it's going to be really, really expensive. And I don't know if insurance will cover it, or even if they do, it could be a lot. There's a lot of just what ifs and unknowns about how this is actually going to play out. Like I said, I'm really glad that we're getting the attention that the Joe Rogans and the Brian Hubbards and all these amazing people are doing to, Marcus and these guys with the documentary. If you haven't watched the documentary In Waves to War, it's brilliant. But there are some down. Well, if I wasn't in combat for 20 years, then I can't do it, and I'm not qualified, or I don't get to do it. And it's like, no, I've even had military people who are 20 years in the military but never saw combat, and they're like, oh, I can't, I must not qualify. And I'm like, no, anybody should be able to do this. The Bwiti culture, they do this at 12 years old. Every single person who comes in at 12 when you hit 12, that is their initiation into adulthood. And then from that point on, they're eating it every day. I know the moms will have it whenever they're breastfeeding and eat it when they're pregnant. They sprinkle it on the food. It's a daily thing. It's just a normal thing that they do over there in Africa. And I can't even imagine how America would be if every adult at 12 had to go through this, because it does change your brain, and it does give you this connection spiritually to God. It's a very spiritual thing. It's a very grounding thing. And it does, cause this enlightenment type feeling where you just kind of feel better about yourself, about your purpose, about why you're here, about what your role is. There's a lot of emphasis on truth and love and joy. In the interviews that I've had where people shared their stories. So that's really cool. One thing I do get a lot of questions about too is, what's the difference between psilocybin and ayahuasca and Iboga? Let's talk about that for a minute. And then I think we're probably going to wrap up unless you guys have any other questions. I can sum it up really quickly. Ayahuasca and psilocybin can do great things as far as the BDF and the GDNF, which we have a lot of that when we were born, all the way up till 2 years old. BDF and GDNF are what helps us form programming and or just paths in the brain to make decisions, to learn, to see new things, do new things. Over time, after 2 years old, you get less and less and less. So what happens is when someone takes Iboga, whether it's microdosing or a flood dose, with microdosing, it's a build. And with a flood dose, it's literally a flood. They call it a flood, as your body starts creating not only neuroibogaine, but the BDNF and GDNF just flood your body. And basically all of those highways get really pliable and movable. And some of them even completely break off. And so maybe if you had some traumas or some way of doing things that seemed like you couldn't change your mind and you were just stuck in these patterns, suddenly it's really easy to change, and or it's not even an issue anymore. Just like if you're in Los Angeles, and if any of you have ever been to Los Angeles and they have all those highways and circles and all of this, when the highway has an issue, let's say there's an earthquake or a pothole, they don't just tear down the whole highway. They build on top. They just fix the potholes. And that's how our brain is too. It's like we'll run into something, we have an experience, and then we have it again, and then we have it again, and it just gets more entrenched, more deeper, more stronger, and more hardwired. So it's not so easy to change your mind because you don't have the BDNF to just change lanes or to just not go that path anymore. So that's the thing. With a flood dose or microdosing, it basically, like I said, saturates everything. And all of a sudden you're just like, you know what? I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do this now. And you can just easily do it. And it's very, very simple. It also resets all your neurotransmitters. So your serotonin, your dopamine, which is your reward. So serotonin is your happy, your purpose. Your GABA, which is, all of the nervous system things get reset. And so that is huge to just feel better and to kind of know your path, to not need to do the things that maybe you had compulsion to do before. And now you're like, oh, I can think about it. You have a little bit of a pause. Also helps with the amygdala, which is the back of your brain. to help with fight or flight. So somebody who's like kind of like on guard all the time and used to things, the shoe always dropping and always looking behind you, that kind of goes away. You're like more ease in your body and you can be more calm. And it also balances out hormones. So women who are in your 40s and 50s, this is fun. Guys who need to get balanced, this is great. Cortisol levels come down. A lot of people end up losing weight because they've been living in fight or flight for so long that increases, decreases, suppresses metabolism, increases appetite. There's just all when our hormones are out of balance. Sleep can be an issue. Sex drive can be an issue. All of those things can be an issue. So when the hormones balance, we seem to be able to be in a better spot. So going back to ayahuasca and psilocybin and ayahuasca are heart openers. Now, what does that mean? People get more in touch with who they are. They may have more feelings. Someone with grief or depression or something like that, it may not be a good fit for you to do ayahuasca or psilocybin because it can amplify things and amplify feelings. And I actually, in the interviews, heard a lot of people who went that direction and then started drinking because it was too much and they needed to like numb the feelings. They didn't want to feel all that. What's different is with Iboga, it is a cord cutter. So if there's people in your life, things in your life, stuff, maybe you're a hoarder or maybe you're not a hoarder, but you just have a lot of stuff, not to the edge of being a hoarder, but it's easy to let go of things. It's easy to let go of expectations even in others or yourself. You're a little less hard on yourself and definitely a lot less hard on others. You kind of just have a bigger picture of being able to see things differently, have a bigger perspective, and give yourself and other people a lot more grace. So again, with ayahuasca and psilocybin, I personally did not feel, I have not done ayahuasca. I have done psilocybin. I had no changes whatsoever. I've done all the different kind of dosing and I didn't actually like it. And even with the microdosing, I nothing happened. And I don't know. It did increase like sadness, I think, a bit for me. But with Iboga, it more was just like, you know what, focus on you and what you need to do. And it was easy to not, the codependency type stuff is over. People in the past maybe said, hey, can you go do this or you do that? I always felt like, oh, I have to. And now it's just like, no, it's okay. I don't have time to do it. And I love you and you're awesome. But it's easier to say no. It's easier to have some boundaries. It's easier not to be the fix-it person for everything. So my friend Evan actually had a really good thing. This is what he said. He said, with psilocybin and ayahuasca, it gives you the ability to see the things you need to do. But with Iboga, it'll show you the things you need to do. It'll tell you how to do it, like how to get there. And it gives you the ability or the motivation to do it as well. And so that's like so true. And I couldn't have said it better because in my case, I knew what I had to do. Like I sat on the couch, I was depressed, I was overwhelmed, had anxiety. And I knew like the blinds needed to be fixed. Those blinds back there. The carpet needed to be shampooed. Like my car needed to be washed and cleaned out. Like I needed to take some stuff to Goodwill. Like there was a mental list, like so long for 3 years of things that I'm going to get to it, but I just exhausted or overwhelmed or couldn't figure out where to start to even do it. But when I did Iboga, like that, all of a sudden it's like you get up and you're like organized or structured. You're not high. It's not a stimulant, but I came home and I was like, oh, I don't like this mess at all. I need to clean this up. And then I literally went room to room, drawer to drawer, closet to closet, and just started getting rid of things. And I took, I think, 23 trips to Goodwill, dropping stuff off, giving things away. There's that attachment to things is no longer there. And the ability to sit where, if it's not like clean and organized, like it's a reflection of the inside. So as my brain was reorganizing, my house was reorganizing, my business was reorganizing, my friendships were reorganizing. So there is very much a mirror to that. So yeah, there is a place for psilocybin, no doubt. And there's a place for ayahuasca, no doubt. I'm not like bashing any of that. I'm just saying with Iboga, it's completely different. And you do have that motivation to do stuff, and it's very direct. Like it'll tell you, like, you need to go do this, or you need to stop doing this. And you feel like it's from God or something. I mean, it's so in your cells and just so true when it's happening. Like I can't go against what I was told. Like I just know, like in my knower, in all my cells, like this is my path or this isn't. And I'm very adamant and I'm very like, this is what I'm supposed to do, if that makes sense. So, yes, that's quite a lot of mushrooms and not the normal. So yes. But anyway, I am going to jump off unless you guys have any other questions. I hope this was helpful. Yes, like I said, I'm not going to give any kind of medical advice, but a lot of these centers will microdose before you go and after. That isn't for me to decide. That is a facilitator, and also that is a Schedule 1. So that's not something that can be done in the States. That is something that's done overseas. There are some countries that it is legal, but right now it's still illegal here in the United States. So unfortunately, we're just waiting for that to change. But if you are overseas, maybe you are. Usually microdosing is anywhere from 90 days to 120 days before you go, and 90 days and 120 after your flood dose. And some people will never flood after they start microdosing because they feel so good. And it is a build. It's not an instant heavy lifting kind of thing with the flood. But with the microdose, it's a build. So it takes time. And once you kind of hit that 90-day and 120-day mark, you're seeing that tipping point where the BDF and GDNF really are like, and you start to kind of go, oh, I'm responding differently, or oh, that's not how I normally would have said something. But you just kind of feel more, I don't know, calm and more able to decide things. And you just have a little more wisdom about it too. Yeah. So let's see. I'm assuming how it affects your relationship with God is in the book. Yeah, I heard God's voice. I don't know, some of you may believe in God or not. I was a minister for 20 years and then got out of ministry and got into naturopathic medicine. I didn't feel like I left ministry. I just felt like I had a bigger ministry in naturopathic medicine than the church. And there were some things going on in my arena of the church setting and the conference speaking that I wasn't really on board with. I didn't line up with things anymore. I always have had a very big heart for God and still do. And I believe that the plants were given to us for that. I think that God is a big tool. God gives us these tools. I look at scripture more as a quantum physics perspective now. And in Revelations, it does say that the trees are for the healing of the nations. And if you look up the actual wording, that word healing, trees are for the healing, the leaves of the trees are for the healing of the nations. That word healing actually is therapeo, and it comes from we get the word therapy from it. And so it's not the instant miraculous healing that sometimes is in the Bible, like the miraculous, but it's the therapeo, healing over time. And for me, being in nature is very healing. And I feel God in nature, whether it's on the beaches, in the ocean, in the waves, or in the forest. or in the desert of Sedona, or, beautiful places in Mexico. Like there's something really to that for me. And I happen to have had a beautiful experience with God. And it seems that even people who are atheists find God in this medicine. And it's pretty profound. I mean, even Conor McGregor, he's like, I saw God, I saw Jesus, I saw angels. He said he saw the whole Trinity, kind of funny. Not funny, but kind of interesting that one of the biggest MMA fighters ever had his experience, and it brought him back to God. So there is a lot. My book actually does go into a little bit about my story at the beginning, but the rest of the book is all about the data and how it works with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS, weight loss, dementia, autoimmune, all the different things that really people aren't talking about. Of course, it does go into, the addiction type message, which we get a lot of, and also the TBI and the veterans and the military, who I absolutely, admire and love. My grandfather was killed in World War I and left 4 children to be raised by my grandmother, my great grandmother. 3 of those boys all went into World War II, and they all served. And one of them actually came home. He was a sniper. And I have another cousin that committed suicide. And my dad served 22 years. I have 2 kids that are serving, full time. One's in very dangerous situations quite often. And so I have a huge heart for the military, and I love that they did this documentary, and I work with a lot of vets. So if you are on here, thank you for your service. And so that's in the book as well. There's just a lot in there. And if any of you are interested, like I said, if you bought it from my website, you get a signed copy. If you get it from Amazon, you can get it quicker, unfortunately, right now, until we get the printed copies here. But it is live on Amazon right now, so you can go get it. Hopefully it makes a bestseller. I think I have to have 200 sales in 48 hours or something. Please leave me a review if you don't mind to. If there's anything about my work that you have followed that you're trying to give back a little bit, then that's something that you can do to help me out a little bit, is just give me a good review and order a book. But love you guys. So appreciative of all of you who are in my Facebook group. I love the questions. I love the interaction. I love the positivity. I love seeing other people helping other people and being, supportive and answering questions to some people who may be on the fence or just don't know what it's all about. And maybe we'll do this again if it feels like the time is right. And I hope I will see you somewhere out there. God bless all of you, and thanks for your time. All right. Bye.